Hey, how's it going? I'm Michael. And in this video, I'm going to have a quick look at some common defensive reactions that you might notice in yourself and in others, and how these can affect our ability to establish and maintain genuine rapport and honestly reflect on the quality of our reasoning, which, as we already know, is essential if we want to have a successful SE interaction. If you haven't seen my other videos in this series, then check out the links in the description below. It's best to watch them all in order. All right, let's get into it. Defensive reactions basically refer to psychological strategies or behaviors that people may use to cope with difficult feelings, thoughts, or events. They are ways you react to situations that often bring up negative emotions. I think most people react defensively in certain situations without even realizing it. It can be a bit like a habit, something we tend to just automatically do. One example might be laughing in a mocking or contemptible way in response to what someone has said or in response to a thought about what someone else believes that you disagree with. Another example might be gossiping to others about someone's belief or behavior that you disagree with, or you might sometimes notice yourself using judgmental language in your thoughts or comments about people who disagree with you or who criticize you. For example, you might find yourself blaming them, criticizing them, or focusing on negative aspects about them, perhaps even exaggerating them, using language in your thoughts like they always, or they never, or all they ever do is, and so on. Another example, particularly in an SE conversation or when the stakes are high, might be when you find yourself forcing on them what you think is true or telling them what the right thing to do is, which is probably only going to invite them to double down and defend their views instead of honestly reflecting. Or on the other side of the coin, you might find yourself doubling down on your own opinions when someone disagrees with you and feel that you need to defend them. Or you might notice that you're not really answering questions that have been asked of you, or you might change the topic or begin to answer questions with your own questions. Again, these are just potential pointers that might indicate defensiveness. Another example could be instead of lashing out angrily at someone and calling them out about something you've noticed that upsets you, you might go silent and stew angrily over what you've noticed with growing feelings of resentment that might surface at some point later on by getting someone back or lashing out at someone else, perhaps someone even close to you regarding something completely unrelated. And here's another one potentially, particularly for street epistemology conversations, feeling that you need any sort of outcome from the person you're talking to, like wanting them to lower or increase their confidence or change their views by the end of the conversation. So, why do we sometimes behave like this? As we saw in my last video, one explanation is that our beliefs and the way we perceive and interpret the behaviors and intentions of others can be connected to and impacted by other deeply held beliefs that can trigger all sorts of emotional reactions. Beliefs we aren't always aware of consciously, like some need for something to be the case, to be okay in life, or some need to be seen a certain way by others to feel significant, like the need to be seen as being right, or consistent, or smart, or a need to not feel spoken down to as if we're wrong, stupid, or bad. They're just some examples, that's the theory. Defensive reactions are not necessarily bad, sometimes they might be good. One view is that they can help you face the anxieties and situations that might normally cause stress and emotional duress in life. Another view is that they prevent you from ever facing emotional issues or anxieties because they block you from seeing and dealing effectively with the root cause, like testing the assumptions that might be driving them. So let's tie all this back to street epistemology now. If our goals in street epistemology are to maintain genuine rapport and honestly explore the quality of our reasoning, it can be difficult to achieve those goals if either of us are feeling defensive and reacting defensively, and there might be some tipping point during the conversation when our original shared goals for the conversation are no longer shared goals, and at that point, it's no longer really a collaboration or a joint venture. And things can quickly spiral into heated debate and argument from there. So, here are three common ways that I think defensive reactions might arise and stop us from having successful SE interactions. First, you might believe that the belief about to be discussed is offensive in some way or that it's dangerous to you and others that you care about. And instead of being curious, compassionate, enthusiastic, and open to learning, you're feeling and reacting defensively. 2, here's another common way defensive reactions might arise. The belief itself might be deeply important to our conversation partner, and questions that begin to show in their mind that the main reasons that they have for being as confident as they are unreliable. And that might feel a bit like having a small pebble in your shoe, uncomfortable and perhaps slightly annoying. And that might in turn trigger defensiveness in them. A third common way might be when our conversation partner reads our defensive body language, tone of voice, or picks up on our direct messaging or any judgments that we're making, or when we might read and pick up on those things in our conversation partner, and that might represent a threat in either of us towards some other deeply held belief like the need to be right, not judged, and not looked down on, thus starting some sort of cycle of defensiveness leading eventually towards debate and argument. We're no longer seeing each other as partners at that point. So I think it's really important that we always be on the lookout for pointers of potential defensive reactions and loss of genuine rapport, and do our best to temporarily suspend any judgments we may be making so we can shift our mindset towards being curious, compassionate, enthusiastic, and open to learning at least something from our conversation partner. I think this combined focus on maintaining genuine rapport and honestly exploring the quality of our reasoning is what really differentiates street epistemology from the general Socratic method. Without genuine rapport, defensive reactions can get in the way and make it difficult to explore the quality of our reasoning. I've found that the more I have street epistemology conversations, the more I notice that I am usually wrong about some aspect of what I already believe. And the easier it tends to get, therefore, for me to be open to the idea that I might learn something from the person I'm talking to, even if it is something as simple as how they arrived at their confidence in whatever they believe. And that helps me to switch over to feeling curious, compassionate, enthusiastic, and open to learning. I've also found that having less attachment to outcomes I have little control over helps me to make this mindset change as well. One thing that has been helpful to me is asking people close to me to point out my defensive reactions whenever they see them, and that has helped me to become more aware of them. You might be surprised at how often you might raise your voice or come across as angry or judgmental without even being aware of it. Another tip that I find useful is to make a conscious effort from time to time to look out for potentially defensive body language in myself and in others, like folded arms, shaking our head, rolling our eyes, and microfacial expressions that might show emotion like anger, contempt, or sadness. A lot of these signs can be subtle and ambiguous, but if you pick up on them, you might be able to be more proactive and check in with that person in a safe way to better understand what's going on. It can take some discipline, but keep working at it to get better control over time. I think it's worth the effort. I hope you enjoyed this video. In the next video, I'll share some more tips that I've found helpful for dealing with defensiveness and better managing our emotions, so make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications button below if you haven't already to check that out. And if you want to learn more about any of these topics, make sure you keep an eye out for the course that's coming out from Street Epistemology International. Take care, and thanks for watching.